Let's take a look at another example dealing with horizontal intercepts and the slope of lines. You can find this problem in your textbook on page 198, and you can also print out this handout in Blackboard to follow along with this video. Let's take a look at this problem. We're given a line that has a horizontal intercept of 6 and a slope of 3, and we're being asked to find the vertical intercept of this line. So let's try and write down every piece of information that we're given and then see how they are related to each other. So let's break down this problem. We're told that a line has a horizontal intercept of 6. So horizontal intercept, remind yourself that a horizontal intercept, that's the same thing as the x-intercept of a line. And the x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis. So we can write that as an ordered pair. So where a line crosses the x-axis, that's where the y value of that point is always 0. And so if it crosses it at 6, then we know that the x value of that point is 6. So the y-intercept is at 6, 0. And this line has a slope of 3. So that's the other piece of information. We have a slope of 3. So I'm going to write this down, and I'm going to call slope m, and we know that it's 3. So it's also positive 3. So this also tells us that this line is going to be increasing. Now the question that we're trying to answer is we're trying to figure out what is the vertical intercept. So let's remind ourselves of what a vertical intercept is. So a vertical intercept, remember, that's the y-intercept. And the y-intercept is where the graph crosses, or the line crosses the graph at the y-axis. So we can also write that y-intercept as an ordered pair, some x comma y. And when a line crosses the y-intercept, we know that the x value is always 0, but we don't know where it's going to cross it at. So I'm just going to put a question mark there. We don't know where it's going to cross the y-axis. Okay, so now that we've written down all this information, we want to ask ourselves, how are these three pieces of information, the x-intercept, the slope, and the y-intercept, how are they all related to each other? So you actually know how they're related to each other, and we can write a formula that represents that relationship, and that formula is the formula for slope. We know that slope is related to the change in the y values of our 2 points. Okay, and remember, these 2 points are the points on the line, divided by the change in the x value. So what we can do is we can go in and we can label our point. So let's call this point here x sub 1. So then this would be that would be y sub 1. I gotta match them up. And then let's call this y-intercept point. Let's call this x sub 2, and then let's call that y sub 2. So our goal right now is to try to find y sub 2. That's the y-intercept. I don't know what it is. I'm going to come back and hopefully answer that question. So now what you're going to do is you're going to just plug in everything that you have. Well, we know what m is. M is 3. And we know that y sub 2 is unknown. Well, so we don't know what that is. So I'll just write y sub 2. I don't know what that is. But y sub 1 is 0. And we know that x sub 2 is 0. And we're going to subtract that from x sub 1, which is 6. Okay, so we don't know what y sub 2 is. But notice you have an equation here where we can solve for y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and simplify the bottom of my denominator and the numerator of, I'm going to simplify the denominator of my fraction and the numerator of that fraction on the right side of the equal sign. So y sub 2 minus 0 is just y sub 2. 0 minus 6 is negative 6. Now I'm going to solve for y sub 2. So I'm going to use inverse operations here and multiply the right side by negative 6. Whatever I do to one side, make sure I do the same thing to the other side. That's going to cancel out. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. So my y-intercept is at negative 18. So this line has a vertical intercept at negative 18, and so that point is the point 0, negative 18.